All right, we're ready to get going if everybody else is. Yes. All right, let's call the meeting for Calaveras County Water District to order. The time is 1 o'clock. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Join me, I should say. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, can we have the roll call?
Director Underhill, here. Director Davidson.
Here.
Director Thomas.
Here.
President Cicada.
Here.
And Director Radaman is absent today.
All right, absent with notice. All right, it is item number 2, public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment here today? Seeing none online. All right, no public comment today. Item number 3, consent agenda. The following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that any item be removed for later discussion.
3C, if you'll pull
All
that,
right, you want to make a motion to,
I'd like to make a motion. No, don't.
no,
I
to
just,
pull,
yeah, I don't have to make a motion. I just
Okay.
ask for you to pull
All right.
item 3C.
all right,
Move for acceptance of 3A, 3B, 3D, 3E, and 3F.
Second.
thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Russ. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, seeing none? Passes 4 and 1 absent. All right, item 3C, go for it, Bertha.
Okay, I believe I've called these in and questioned them and Jessica's going to have answers for me.
Can you go through
Can you
each
come
question?
to the? Good morning.
Hello, Jessica.
Okay. My first was CDTFA, a voucher for 91,159.70 for water rights.
Yes, I spoke with Brad Arnold about that. That's the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. Those are charges or billings for water rights. It's normal fees. And we get reimbursed by NCPA for North Fork.
Oh,
Okay.
So, yeah.
oh, wonderful.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Okay, the next one was, well, we don't have any page numbers,
Okay.
but the next one is the Department of Water Resources, the application fee for enlargement of dam for Pond 6. And my question for the $74,000 was, we have parameters or we have criteria on enlargement, and this is just to catch up for the fact that we're going to enlarge it, right?
That line item, I was not asked about. So I don't know.
Oh.
Maybe someone else was supposed to answer.
Charles.
So, yeah, that's for the. Yeah. That's for the Division of Safety of Dams, so the agency that would be reviewing and approving the plans for the construction of the dam. So that's for basically their efforts to undertake the review of the plans and go out to the project during construction and inspect it. So, that's all our future efforts. So.
$74,000.
Remember when they used to pay taxes and the government actually did stuff?
Mhm.
Now it's like,
Charles,
you gotta pay.
Hey, yeah, we got more questions.
Thank you for taxes.
Yeah.
Russ?
okay, the prior discussion we've had on this raising in Pond 6 is that they're dusting off the old plans and making some certain modifications.
Correct. Right.
And we're anticipating there's going to be $10 million or something to raise that. And what if the bids come in at 20,000 and we decided we just can't afford it? So do we get a refund on this 74, or why wouldn't it be paid a little bit later in the game?
Yeah, well, the review process for DSOD does take about 6 to 9 months, even though, you know, where we're saving cost is that the company that did the original design plans, we were able to reach out to them and get a very economical price on them to update those plans. But unfortunately, DSOD will not, they won't, I'm pretty sure they won't issue a refund if you don't act on, once they review the plans and they give you approval for construction, they would, you know, want you to expediently move forward with construction, and I'm pretty sure they don't refund application fees once they're submitted.
Can I just ask real quick, how far off are you from construction?
Uh, it's, that's a complicated question.
It's not funded, so.
Yeah, okay, well.
So again, we
I
spent
didn't-
$74,000 on something that we're not ready to pull the trigger on.
Right, yeah, so, like I said, it is very urgent that this project moves forward for the service area of Copper Cove. We're, you know, given the current pace of development, you know, we are approaching some of our permit limits, and in prior years, we have had overflows of Pond 6, and, you know, our operations staff have done a tremendous job in the past trying to mitigate those situations. With the additional connections coming online, it's just going to be more and more challenging for them to continue to do that in a wet year, like approaching 100-year storm event.
Is there an expiration time on this application?
Yes, they
Which is-
normally like you to proceed within 1 year. They will give,
But
Well-
if you can't, and I'm sorry, I'm directing it to you. You're just unfortunately the one at the podium.
that's fine.
So if it expires in a year, we don't know when we're going to do construction. Does that matter, or is it just they're looking at your plan, your design? What is a design or
I
construction?
mean, after they give you approval the approval
it's not-
process can take a long 6 months plus.
Okay, so my question is, it expires in a year from whatever the date was of this check, March 31st, let's say. So of a year to give them what? What are they looking at? The construction portion or design portion?
So let me clarify that. So once they give approval to proceed with construction, the time clock starts on the 1 year. So that could be 6 months from now, that could be 9 months from now, before that, the clock starts. So, yeah, so I think the intent here is that we're expecting grant funding be available for that project. So that's what, you know, we're banking on that to fund the project.
I see Michael probably wants to comment.
Yeah.
President Skata, yeah, if you don't mind if I could jump in here real quick.
Yeah,
Hopefully
please.
you
Yes.
can hear me all okay. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. But yeah, just to add a little bit to what Charles said, and this is a really critical project, one of our highest priorities, that we know needs to move into construction during that time frame. We still have some work to do on the funding side of things. But we felt that, as part of the development of the project, we had to get this regulatory approval process started, so that we'd be ready to start construction in a year or two when the time comes and we'll have funding available. It's a year, but there's the possibility of extensions. I know we've gotten them before, so hopefully we won't have to do that. But we'll, like I said, it's a high priority project that we'll move forward with as quickly as we can.
Michael, I have a question for you. When I got on the board close to 6 years ago, this was a project that I remember pretty clearly that the design had been completed. There was an engineer's estimate that it was going to be $6.5 million to do the work. So my question, kind of following up with what others have said, is that if we got that far, if what we're hearing today is true, then we must have paid a previous sum of money for the state to review that plan. Is that correct or incorrect?
Yeah, I believe, and Charles, correct me if I'm wrong here,
That's
but I
correct,
believe the
yeah.
project was approved by the state. That approval lapsed, I think, in 2018. So what we've done here is resubmit, after some updating of the plans, is basically resubmit the plans that were, that we had from before.
Okay, so there's no box on the application form that you can check the boxes, say that by the way, your office has approved this, essentially the same project in, as recently as 2018.
Yeah, they are definitely aware that it was submitted previously, they, at the time, they gave us multiple extensions. I think it was just that the economics at the time was not right for the district. So they told us, back in 2018 that we would have to repay these fees if we filed again.
How much were those fees?
I think they were like $50,000 last time.
Yeah. Well, I find that really not acceptable. Not at all. I mean, it's, and I'm looking at you and I'm not directing at you. I'm directing at whoever was there. How did it happen that we spend all this money and then we don't go forward without one asking for an extension? I mean, $50,000 is a lot of money.
Apparently they did go through several extension periods, as Charles just mentioned, but I'm just really fearful that same
Scenario.
the potential for the same scenario developing is, I don't know, it's just concerning.
I think that it was right after the housing bubble crashed, so development went from 1,000% to 0%. And we just didn't have the $6.5 million to build the project, so that's kind of the situation we were in.
On this grant that you think that you're going to have funds for this, is it full grant ride to pay this $10 million project?
There is a lot of infrastructure bills floating around right now, and many geared towards drought related projects and reclaimed water projects. So there are good possibilities.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, we had the housing bubble crash last time. Now we're in this terrible inflation. Our economy is terrible thing. The cost to build is skyrocketing. So I'm just wondering, and Michael, this is probably you, why did you decide to go forward unless you're confident that you're going to use some kind of funding to get this done? And then, the priority still to me is not dialed in, but that's just my opinion, the priority of all the projects that we've approved. And why did it have to happen today? I don't get it. Spending $74,000 was it budgeted?
Yeah, so we budgeted money through the capital improvement program for this project for this year. This is probably, when we do a lot of work on prioritization of the projects that are in the CIP, and this is number one on a lot of people's lists, for various reasons, including some the regulatory compliance issues. As Charles mentioned, we're regularly approaching a spill at Pond 6, which is treated, it's wastewater effluent. So spilling at Pond 6 into sensitive environmental area is going to be costly for the district if we can't avoid it. And it's happened. We've had notices of violation out there before. And so it's not really dependent on future growth. The project is something that we need now, and is like I said, a high priority in our permit. One of the great things about copper wastewater is the permit allows for expansion of capacity immediately once this project is implemented, without having to amend the permit, which is a really nice regulatory feature, and why we've prioritized this one over some of the other potential improvements to the wastewater treatment plant that would also be costly. So from a cost standpoint, this is the most cost-effective way for us to address the capacity limitations that we have at the wastewater treatment plant there. we have, as Charles mentioned, there's multiple different potential sources of funding, but this is the one that we have really targeted this first for the next phase of Section 219 funding. So we just received funding for in the last federal budget for the tertiary filter at copper wastewater. This is the next project that we're pursuing Section 219 funding for. So hopefully we don't know yet, because so we will continue to pursue other sources of funds at the same time. But if that is successful, that's a 75% federal funding and 25% local cost share.
And would this fee be able to be repaid or filed to the grant for reimbursement? Or part of the grant? The fee, the application fee, is that, can you use that in the grant you're thinking of to get reimbursed for it?
Good question. I don't think so. No, I don't think we could. I think we've had that conversation with the Army Corps about the tertiary filter right now. Funds that we're spending on that project are not reimbursable or could not be reimbursed through the federal share of that project, which we're okay with because we know the local share is going to be greater than 25% anyway. So we're not concerned about meeting the local share and still receiving the full appropriation of federal funding.
And this project, you said was 10 million. So you expect to get, that $10 million project approved and they'll do 75% and we pay the 25 of the 10 million, or is it some other dollar amount?
No, that's right. That's my understanding is that's a high estimate. We're not gonna adjust it downward in the current climate, especially. But I think the hope is it'll come in under that. But that would be the total project cost with the if we're successful in getting Section 219 funding, it'd be 75% federal, 25% local.
But do you know what's available in that Section 219 funds?
So
I guess I'm talking, we're only allowed, if they only have $3 million for us, it'll be helpful.
can
but
I
we still
jump?
have
I'm
to
sorry.
find more money.
Yeah, I think Matt's
Andy,
about
Michael.
an act warning.
Yeah, I think you guys gone a little too far. We're gonna have to, if you want to discuss this further, we're probably gonna have to agendize it. I'm sorry.
We can do that, but real quick, the answer is we're seeking an increase in the authorization so the authorization is currently 3 million, and we're seeking an increase in the authorization to allow for funding of this project from the Army Corps.
I heard what Matt said, and I'm going to ask him to indulge this comment. It seems like that we're really jumping into this project, and I have said I've mentioned up to 30 times that the largest or one of the largest elements of cost in this thing is going to be the importation of the dirt to raise the dam. And I have seen no evidence that you guys are looking carefully at the closest source of that dirt. So my question is, why would you launch into spending $74,000? You've got things in design. You have probably going to put this thing out to bid without knowing where the damn dirt's going to come from. So please don't do that to me or to us.
Just to comment on that, we do have.
You guys, we've been given legal advice to
Okay,
drop this.
all right.
Let's just move on.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm the president. Answer that question. Anyhow, but you know what the problem is we've spent the money and we should be able to ask certain questions pertaining to this. Maybe we don't have to say Section 219, but it is relevant in my opinion. You guys are the attorneys, I get that. But at least what he just asked, please.
I can answer that very quickly. There is no doubt in my mind that we will find the lowest cost source for material for the dam raise.
Okay, moving on. Bertha, you got
okay.
more.
Thank you.
Couple pages, we paid,
No.
how much did we pay? $1,200, 13 to EUCI for a leadership conference for women in engineering. And I was going to congratulate engineering because they hired a woman engineer, but that wasn't the case. We sent our staff to go and to go to this conference. So that was that. INI sensors, $28,000, and that's a couple of pages later. We don't, again, if you'll have page numbers, that'll help us.
Yeah.
And so that'll be for the entire district, the INI sensors. Is that the cost?
Yeah, we know the smart evidence.
Uh-huh.
Those were for 5 sensors. They go inside the manholes for our sewer system. And we can record the flows. They can set high level alarms and all that. So that's what those were for 5 of those units.
And that is district wide, or, I don't,
Yeah, we're gonna put those 5 in some strategic locations in different areas. Yeah.
okay. All right,
Yep.
great. Uh-huh. Thank you.
Well,
And so we have, this is the biggie to Mueller Systems, the 2,500,000 for the construction contract. And we haven't, if I understand correctly, there was confusion in the billing.
yes.
Yeah, so it took Mueller quite a while to correct some confusion in the invoices. That's a good way to put it. So there have been no progress payments up to this point throughout the project, and the project's almost complete. So that's why a lot of it hit all at the same time.
And so now we're
This
down
is the
in
first
Valley,
payment we've made on the project.
we're finishing up in Valley Springs, right? Is that right?
Yeah, we still have.
They need to be done in Valley Springs by the end of the month.
Great, great. Okay, just a couple more. We spent 72,000 for site work here at headquarters. And this was on page, whatever it is, to Plumber Built.
Plumber Built's the contractor that built the courtyard. So
Mhm.
that's probably a
So-
progress payment to Plumber Built.
And so are they done? Is that what we're,
Plumber will have done with their portion, yes.
oh, okay, all right. Well, this one is Cindy's, the pre-purchase contract for the filter for West Point Water, $64,000. Great.
That was worth it.
And I see several reimbursements for a UB refund. And what is that?
So the first one is a refund for construction costs related to a sewer connection. And the other two, which you are going to get used to seeing more often now that we have Tyler, is a refund to customers who have an excess credit on their account. So a lot of customers, what they do is in auto pay, they set up $150 a month and to pay every single time. And in Springbrook, sometimes those customers would have an excess of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 of a credit in their account. But Tyler now has a cap. And once a customer hits base rate consumption for a full year, it automatically requires a refund to the customer in excess of that. So those are just excess.
Oh, so we won't be seeing those big charges.
No, but you will be seeing that in this now. Once, customers hit that limit, they just get the money refunded back to them so that we aren't holding that in our account.
I'm through. Thank you. Thank
All
you.
done?
Huh?
Russ?
Whatever.
Me too.
I'll move for acceptance of 3C.
I've got some more questions here. We haven't seen these for a while, at least I haven't, so I've got some questions. And so I'm gonna go. And if she's already answered it, just remind me, asked it. So. Looking on the Calaveras County Environmental Health, all the hazmat response, $321, what are those? Are those?
So those are for California Environmental Reporting Services. So each of our locations has hazardous materials on it. Those are the permit fees for that.
Okay. Thank you. And then, oh, we talked about that, the water rights, right? Yeah. And another comment on the legal stuff, Downey brand. I would like just a brief description of what it is that we're providing, whether it's being at a meeting, whether it's Eastside, San Joaquin, or some other project. I'd like to have a description there, just brief as it is, you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Thank
so there's, you know, attorneys' invoices are typically privileged documents, so it's not something we would put in the packet.
Okay, so perhaps you could just say something like copper project. You do that? Just so
Yeah.
we know, I mean, you know, that's all I'm looking for was for the take sick job or whatever. You know, just something brief. If it's, you know, privileged information, I don't want that, but perhaps you could say confidential item even if it all says confidential. But there's gotta be like, you were able to put the Eastside San Joaquin GSA, it was for work on that. Was there, you know, maybe he needs
Yeah,
to
so
do
Matt
an
and
opinion
I'll
and
talk
stuff
off-
like that.
Yeah, Matt and I can talk offline about the best way
Okay.
to descriptors.
Just
and-
a little something, and just legal services. I mean, we've got a lot of money being spent. It'd be nice to know something. The global pay, the merchant service fees, those are for credit card fees, I imagine, Jeff? And is that a monthly fee, quarterly fee, or global pay merchant services? Is that for 1 month?
I need to look into that. I
Okay,
believe one month,
Yeah.
the description showed 222.
Yeah. yeah, so,
I'll go into the description with each individual categories.
yeah. So, we don't have Catherine here, do we? She's usually only here on the finance. So then the next one, Finance Department Assistant, Hilltop Securities, what is that one for? What?
That is the charge, I work at Hilltop,
Uh-huh.
so my service is getting charged through Hilltop. This,
Do you charge us hourly?
this I did.
I'm afraid to ask what that is, but we'll put that for the meeting, I suppose. The legal services for Lieber Cassidy Whitmore, that is for a job, I imagine, a project. I'm wondering what that is for. We got January, February, and October. Is that for some project, probably?
Yeah, we can follow up on that offline.
Okay. What is the Mission Square RHI payroll pay? What are those?
Mission
Anybody
Square
know?
is the retiree health accounts. So that's the payment that goes into the retiree health
Okay.
accounts.
Thank you. Got that big one. Springbrook, professional services, 6.25 hours. Looks like some kind of a consultant, so. But we didn't we just buy that, another annual plan with them? I mean, who's this person?
I'm not
So we're in the
sure-
process-
Oh, go. Thank you, Jessica.
We're in the process of transferring to a new server for Springbrook for our financial system. So I would assume that that we're paying Springbrook staff to convert
Okay.
us over, and that's happening on Friday.
But didn't we see, Michael, that we had to put out another $20,000 or whatever that number was? Because we found out there was a server problem. We had to buy Springbrook again in order to make this change.
Yeah, and I'm
Right.
not sure if that's included within the 20,000 or not. I'd have to double check. I can get back to you on that.
Well, it comes down to, it's like, we're spending a lot of money. It's like we're reacting instead of being more proactive with, you know, okay, when we went to go with Tyler, Springbrook was gonna be done, then all of a sudden we had to spend another $20,000. And now this is only, you know, a little under a couple $1,000, but it's all this stuff adds up and somebody's gotta make sure they're keeping an eye on it and not letting that happen. I think sometimes we need to have that as, you know, well, us asking you folks about it. And thank you. And then, Wagner and I can't pronounce the last name. Thank you.
That's
And-
the engineering firm that's helping us with the Pond 6 dam.
Okay. And then the Tyler Mueller Integration Support Services for 24,000. It wasn't this all part of the purchasing the Tyler to have some support there, or is this an additional amount that we didn't plan on?
No, I think that, I don't think that's additional. I think that's within the scope of the project.
Okay.
I can go
perfect.
back and follow up on that specific line item.
Perfect. And then Western Hydro, oh, you got a question?
Well, the next item for West Soft developers, that CMMS software, that $32,000 for 18 months. Is that what the license cost for that CMMS software?
I
That's
believe
right
so.
below.
Yep.
the-
That's for the WebSoft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the
So-
licensing cost for the CMMS software.
And it'll be that fee every 18 months or every couple of years, whatever it is.
So I can see
It'll
18
probably
months.
increase too. Western Hydraulics annual water rights reporting 3,300. Somebody, they had to provide some kind of lab work.
Yeah,
that
that's the other Jeff Meyer. And so annual water rights reporting was due at the end of last month. So Brad did a lot of it, and with help from other of our staff. But that always requires some assistance from Jeff Meyer as well.
Okay, thank you. And I know it's confidential. 30 hours CTO payout. What's the CTO stand for?
I'll talk all the time.
I'm sorry, what?
Comp time.
Okay. So they just had excess hours that they cashed out. Okay. All right, Russ?
Just a couple of things. Looking at the biosolids charges for going to Potrero Hills, I know that years ago that Public Works accepted biosolids as the daily cover at the landfill. It got stopped by a particular director of Public Works. We have a new director who was an old interim director. Has anybody asked lately whether they would accept the biosolids there?
Not to my knowledge, but I think that's a great point. And I've had some conversations with Robert recently. So yeah, I'd be happy to touch base with them and see if there's any possibilities there.
Yeah, no, there has been discussions with the county. And that's about as far as we've gone.
While you're there, I saw this charge or payment to the City of Angels for the 6 mile sewage pipe of 14,000. It normally, if my memory serves me, it ordinarily is 6,500 a month. What did we miss a payment or something? Or?
It looked like on that claim summary, it was for 2 months. But yeah, I haven't seen that invoice in quite a while. It does not go to me anymore.
You have something, Jim?
The description was January, February, so it's 2 months.
Okay, very good.
But it used to be around $3,200. So,
I've always seen it at 6.
okay, it might have gone up. It's been a while since I've seen it.
That's back when you started here, so.
Well, not,
Anyway, that's all all my questions
All
for today.
right, Jeff, you still have that motion on the table?
Yeah.
Can we get a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
those opposed? All right, Bertha. All right, that passes. All right, moving on to new business 4A, discussion action regarding authorizing the general manager to proceed with issuance of tax exempt bonds to finance various water and wastewater capital projects and appoint a financing team and approve a reimbursement resolution.
So I'll
Yeah.
kick it off here real quickly, but there's folks in the room that are the financing team, and I know it's always better to hear from people in the room. So I'm gonna be here to answer questions if needed, but I'll turn it over to Jeff to take the lead on it.
Who's the financing team? Tell me who that is, please.
Yes, there's 3 members of the financing team. Julio Morales of Urban Futures, which is here today, and he will be speaking later on. Jeff Land of Oppenheimer, and then Hudak Rock will be bond counsel.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for, Madam President, members of the board for taking this item. President Cicada did the long version of the actual description, so I'll bypass that, but let you know that today we're seeking 2 resolutions for your approval. The first is authorizing the general manager to proceed with planning for issuance of certain obligations to finance water and wastewater system improvements and appoint a financing team. The second one is to declare its official intent to reimburse itself with the proceeds of a tax exempt financing for certain expenditures undertaken or to be undertaken by the district. As you can tell, those were written by attorneys. So I'm going to address each one separately. The last one is pretty much self-explanatory. We've done that in the past with certain financing projects. Just to do a recap of the events up to today, at the March 11th Finance Committee meeting, district staff and Julio presented a financing plan to fund a portion of the district's 5-year capital improvement program, which was provided, and the finance committee at that time provided direction to take this matter to your full board, which we did on March 23rd. At that time, your board authorized the general manager to engage the proposed financing team and to solicit bids from interested banks to provide private placements. A little background on that is generally when you look to finance projects like this, you have 2 options. One is a private placement with the bank. The other is a public offering where you go out and issue bonds to shareholders. With the market the way it's been recently and the need to move quickly, and Julio addressed this at the last presentation, we decided to go private placement. And that turned out to be fortuitous because we were able to jump on things fairly quickly. Jeff Land of Oppenheimer sent out bids on March 25th for 2 separate loans. One is a 20-year water and another 20-year sewer. The water was 19.8 million and sewer was 11.1 million. We received 11 bids from the 8 different financial institutions, and those bids are summarized in your staff report. And at this point, I'm going to let Julio speak to talk about the bids, where we are at that particular moment, and answer any questions that you have on that particular process. And then I'll come back in and discuss the rest of the staff report,
Thank you.
unless you have any further questions for me at this time.
I was going to ask about the draw. Is it everybody have an 18-month draw on the water and 24? Because what I remember with the private placement, we only paid interest on whatever we were taking at the time. Is that still in effect or has that changed?
That has changed. I'm going to let Julio address that.
And Julio, Jeff Land, I'm on the line as well, so I can comment, Julio, if you'd like me to.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeff.
So when I spoke on the 23rd, our primary concern in our recommendation about a private placement loan had been for the rate lock feature. And then we had looked at the second component, which was that drawdown feature. And I can say, I'll get to your answer real quickly. The market is changing almost by the hour. And whatever sentiment they may have had a few weeks earlier had kind of changed. And when we looked at the bids as they came in, and you can see these bids as they come in here, those who provided the draws, so that flexibility was there, was uneconomical. In other words, it was far better a cost for you to go with the lower bid than it would be this drawdown feature. Typically, as we've done the break even, it was around 14 basis points. If it had been that different and you were looking at extending or uncertain when the draws would take place, then it might have made sense. But the ones who actually provided that draw feature, Umpqua Bank at 373, as you can see, versus 320. So there's a 53 basis point differential. It does not make sense for that. And maybe Jeff can answer, at the beginning of the year or end of December, these banks were looking to have these contracts and would have provided at a much lower rate. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. Yeah, with the moving market, the banks that were willing to participate with the draw structure reduced to those two because of it, and that's a factor of the rising interest rate environment because they're at risk for longer with the draw schedule.
Yeah. Would it have even been a premium at the time?
No,
Or they
not
just
at
do
that
it
time. I think in January, February, but before things really started getting messy in March, yeah, I think we still would have maybe been in better shape. Unfortunately, things did change quite quickly on us when we got out to the market.
So a couple of things. In the model that we put together for the bonding capacity, we had conservative estimates. So one of the good things, even though rates went up, we built in enough cushion that you have enough capacity to borrow. So what we're actually looking at is Jeff put out bids for 19 million, $11 million, but we're going to keep it to our coverage covenants or the amount that we believe we're comfortable with. So we're going to come up with a loan factor that's approximately 17.8 and 11.1 million. So we're going to borrow to a certain annual revenue limit. So I mean, we have more capacity, but we're going to say, especially in the case of water, we only need 17.8. But the rate on the water side is 2.94. It's important. And maybe I go over the numbers and rates. I think we've been working for months, as you know, on the bonding capacity and had gotten to this point. And thank you for your authorization on the 23rd. In 48 hours, we turned around a bid spec and sent out to the market because the market was moving dramatically against us. Jeff was the one who solicited those bids. And for example, Webster Bank at 294 came in. And when I called Webster the next week to make sure their price was firm and said, hey, you're the low bid, I asked them where would the rate have been that Tuesday or Wednesday. I cannot remember whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday. He said the market had already moved to 311. So I think this idea of doing a private placement loan and the idea of doing a rate lock has already proven, frankly, I don't even know what the rate is today. I just know then it was 311. It probably does not look nearly as good.
3.25, Julio.
3.25. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you think of it from this, you've already saved at least a quarter of a percentage point by locking in your rate today and moving to market quickly. Because no, the date was the 23rd. That night we called and said, hey, let's get this bid spec. We actually had a call on the 24th and got the spec out that Friday and gave bidders a week. So we moved as quickly as I've ever moved. I'm in this business for a long time, and the market is very volatile. There are changing conditions by the day. So I think in retrospect, the board made really good decisions and moved very, very quickly. Did you have?
Well, explain more in more detail why this request was for 19,850,000, and then you said we're only going to need 17.
Right. So what Jeff did is he bid out something for more capacity. And then once we got the rate, we'd figure out how much we wanted. At the end of the day, we have a revenue limit, which is 1.2 million on the water side and 1.2 million supports $17.8 million with bonds. So even though you have more capacity, we're doing it to what we have for our coverage covenant at 125 and $1.2 million. It also provides John the amount of money that he needs for the annual R&R cost. So we weren't certain what the interest rate was. We asked for a greater amount. Once we got the interest rate, then we went back and refined the calculation.
Okay, so I did the arithmetic on here and it looked like that $2 million had evaporated, but it's just, we're not.
Yes, they gave us an interest rate and a maximum amount. It didn't evaporate. We didn't want to increase the payment. So if you could go to 19, but our payment would go higher and we didn't want to do that. We had really our limit was 1.2. He set it to a maximum, so in case the rate was lower, we could have gone up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And just to add to what Julio was saying, it is also just standard practice to go out for a little bit more because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you didn't go out for enough. Because then you would potentially have to, in other words, if you needed more and we didn't go out for enough, then we would have to go back out and do a new rate lock, new credit process. So that's also part of the strategy.
Mike?
We're gonna let Jeff go.
Yeah, I have a question when you're talking about, on our loan to debt ratio. Being at 1.25, is that right?
That's the debt service coverage requirement that you're supposed to have.
It's a requirement, but where does it actually leave us if we go and get this? What will I assume that you booking these at our current rates? So we're not gonna have to expand our rates to cover these loans?
Well, you're asking two questions, so I'm gonna get to the first one. The first one is you have a 1.25 debt service coverage covenant for your existing bond issues. So you have existing loans and it says you have to have this much in revenue to cover your debt service. So we have to meet that covenant already. That's from your existing loan. So your second question was, would we have to increase rates? I believe the general manager can address this, but at the time he had mentioned that we've done this within your existing capacity. This is what you have in your current revenue structure. We've done a lot of modeling to make sure that you can currently afford it without raising rates or increase any other capacity.
Okay, so does anybody have the answer to what our current loan to debt ratio is?
Just a.
Or how close we will be to our minimum or?
No, this will be at the max set at 1.25 with the revenue.
Well, that's not. I mean, I guess, you say it's the max, I say it's the minimum, I guess probably my terminology. I just want to know where, I want to put our current loan to debt ratio was like 1.8 or something like that. I just don't want to be right there at the borderline.
At the max to where we're.
Right.
Oh, the way they calculate it this way. Oh, yes. So it looks like we're around,
This.
yeah, we're at 7 and go down to 3. But the way we calculated it was we took just the R&R revenue. And that's probably a difference. So when you go and you do your actual covenant and you go to the rating agencies, you say, we take our general revenues and you take the net revenues and you
You only
take the
took the R&R revenue.
That's all we're looking at. So we're doing R&R at 1.25. I'm sorry, I should have.
And to follow up what Julio was mentioning, in our audits, which takes into account all revenues, right now we're at 4.22 on the sewer side and 6.92 on the water side. So we've got plenty in that, but we're being very conservative by just looking at the R&R revenues.
Okay.
Because we also wanted to make sure that we had some excess revenues after debt service to be able to maintain ongoing operations under the R&R funds.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
I'm happy that we went in with it came with a 2.94.
Yeah, 2.94 and a 3.2%.
And that's a lot.
That is locked.
No touching, no nothing.
That is correct.
And, I just wanted to make.
That is not the convention in a traditional bond as a public offering. In a traditional bond, we would have said, go to the team and then we sell bonds in May or June, and you would get the rate on that actual day. You get asking us like, what's the rate going to be? We're like, I think it's going to be around, but only when you actually go to market. What the primary advantage of this private placement is you're locked in today.
How long is this rate good for? When do we?
It is good till we close, which is we're anticipating in June.
Okay.
Early June.
Yeah, it's a June, we were looking June 1 closing, so that's what it's locked to.
So you will have money before the end of the fiscal year. And also the second part is that you have that reimbursement resolution. You've identified projects, so you can spend on those identified projects 60 days prior to passing it today.
So, how's the distribution when we ask for money? Would we just get all the 17.8 less the fees, the loan fees for this?
Yes, that's exactly what
And
will
then it's
happen.
gonna go in our coffers and then we'll bill it out and we start paying
I
them.
believe in the loan instruction. Will it go will it stay with the bank or does it go? I haven't seen the legals per se.
But if it stays with the bank and we're paying interest, I would say, why not we have it, put it in our bank to try and offset a little bit.
Well,
of
you will
the
get some
income.
interest in either case.
Over
I don't know
there?
the
Okay.
mechanics per se of,
Yeah,
we haven't seen the legals.
Yeah, we don't have those legals developed yet, Julio, but there's certainly flexibility in how the mechanics work for holding the project fund. So, I mean, I believe that,
We will seek to optimize the amount of
Thank
interest
you. Yeah.
earnings that you look at.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we haven't, as we said, we've The first thing we wanted to do is make sure that we can lock in rates, as the director was saying. And then from there, we were going to close and structure the documents, and we look to optimize that. But clearly, you're going to look to invest those monies and get the most possible. And it's a good environment in that sense. As we're raising rates, you at least get a little bit more reinvestment income, which is the only positive thing. So you've locked in on one side, and you'll get a bit more reinvestment on the other
These
side.
can potentially bring that down. And so that would be important to me to make sure we do that, since we have to get it all on and start paying interest.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Yep.
But we, as you said, we did break even analysis, and it had to be about 10, 15 basis points for me to make sense to take that contract.
Russ?
At the bottom of page 2 of 3, there's something that caught my eye, but staff is kind of pointing out to the board here that they want us to understand that there is significant risk in completing the project listed below within the budgets presented. I mean, that is like hitting me with a cattle prod. Not sure how to react to that.
Director, I'm going to allow. I hear cattle prod, and I'm just, I'm a city boy, so I'm going to get.
Let me start with this, and then John will probably pick up. When you're right, on the construction side, we are looking at recent developments. When we had bids come in for the West Point Wellesleyville project, they came in significantly higher than what the engineer's estimate was, significantly higher.
Only double.
Yes. So John and Charles have reached out to our agencies in and around the area to see what they're experiencing, and they're experiencing the same things where projects are coming in higher than engineer's estimate. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of this is coming up due to cost of materials.
Yeah.
So we're running into that. I know there's ongoing discussions between the agencies and such to share information even with the contractors, so we get a better feel for this. This was more of bringing it out in the open, so your board is aware of the challenges we're facing with actual construction costs. Obviously, there's two components. One is the financing of the projects, and the other is the construction cost. We wanted to make sure that the financing was in at the lowest rate possible, which I believe we've done rather well with. Construction costs, that's going to have to be managed separately. That is something that, as you're looking at the individual projects and the timeline of them, it'll probably be based on the individual needs and also bid prices for those and available funds. And that's something that John and Charles can address better, but it was something we wanted to make your board aware of, that we are facing those challenges. And obviously you heard about West Point Wellesleyville.
On Russ with that, if we're not certain we're going to be able to get all this done, I'd like to know in advance what the plans are for which project. I'd love to see that. I don't care what the dollar amount is.
Sure.
I think our policy is, I forget what it is, but if we're going to borrow this money, I don't want to see it spent and then like what Russ is afraid of. Well, we can't quite finish this one because we don't have enough money. The costs were high. I want to make sure that it comes to us before a decision is made to say, okay, here's the project, what we're doing. It's costing this much money, and where we're all on agreement with. That sounds like the proper way to put it.
Mhm.
That's the priority thing that I keep bringing up. I still think it's the redwood tank. Others seem to think it's building the dam. So you know what I'm saying? Is I just
Exactly.
think that the board needs to say, okay, we'll sign off on that. Go for it. You know what I mean? That way we all have skin in the game with making that decision. So if it comes back where, we didn't get it done, at least we were part of that decision,
Certainly.
not.
And may I follow up on that question, Director Underhill? Remember, one of the things we have to focus on is we have two separate pots of money, one for water, one for sewer, that you can't cross-pollinate, although sometimes they do. The other part of it is, as we're in the process of developing our fiscal year 22-23 budget, which will have the operating and the CIP budget. By that time, which it comes to you in June, we'll have a much better feel on prioritization, where we are, and how we're going to move forward. But remember, it's only your board that can approve that plan and approve those projects and approve that budget. So we will be bringing those to you and engaging you in those conversations so that you'll get full sign off on those.
But it seems like we already approved these projects, and in a last package about this, it says in small print, it said you could pick and choose kind of the projects. And I just think if it's over X amount of money, well, for instance, the dam that you just spent $74,000 on, that would have been nice to have a heads up, and just for the projects that we're going to use these bond funds for.
Sure.
We have the others that we've already been budgeted. We're not asking for, not a pre-approval, but I want to make sure if we're borrowing this money, spending all the money, spending the cost to get this money, that it's used the way it should be.
So
I-
if I could jump in
I-
here,
We're on the line.
Jeff. So I think, because I think there's a couple of really important points here. One is the Pond 6, the works that we're doing on Pond 6 dam raise was approved. So that's budgeted and approved money that we're spending on the Pond 6 dam raise. The work that we'll be doing with bond proceeds, if this moves forward, we've indicated the high priority projects that are moving forward over the next couple of years that I suspect the vast majority of these funds will be spent on. But there is flexibility, which is great, because especially now that we know we aren't going to use that drawdown feature that we had considered before. It's in our interest to use, in my opinion, to use these funds in the near term. And so if it's a choice between funding CIP implementation, even if it's on projects that weren't specifically identified for I don't want to lock us into only using bond funds on certain projects, because it may be in our interest to use those funds on other projects because we're already paying debt service on it. So let's put the money that we're paying debt service to work as quickly as possible. And if that means we can hold on to R&R and build reserves while interest rates are working for those reserves, I think that puts us in a good position. So I think the overarching point is we need to be as efficient and as cost effective as possible every time we're spending, spending money on a capital project, but having the flexibility to utilize these funds as quickly as possible on multiple projects, I think is in the district's best interest.
Well, I agree with that, Michael. I think there needs to be flexibility, but as a representative of the ratepayers, we're spending their money. So I want to make sure that the decision you made for these funds, we are aware of it and we say, yeah, we're with you on it. Is there any reason why we couldn't do it that way?
No, I wouldn't want to do it any other way. I certainly don't want to stick my neck out and spend that kind of money without board approval.
But what I heard you say though is, for instance, the $74,000, there's a couple of us that think maybe that could have waited. And for whatever reason, here nor there, it doesn't matter. But if you said in there that it was already approved in our CIP plan, well, every one of these projects that you have listed for this bond proceeds isn't an approved CIP. What I'm asking for is to take it a step further and say, hey, board, we're going to go ahead and utilize, $20,000 or $100,000 of this bond fund, and we're going to put it towards this project. Give us a heads up. You may not necessarily need our approval, but I'd like to make sure that we can have comments that we agree with you or not, just to make sure, because we're the ones that speak to our ratepayers. So if they say, oh, great, you spend, $8 million on this project and it's not done and we can't use it. I don't expect that to happen, but I want to be able to be part of being able to explain that we made a good decision on how we spent that money.
So I think there's a fine line there, because, we bring these contracts to the board for approval before we spend money on these projects. But once the contract is approved, and unless there's a significant change in the development of the project or the cost of the project, I think it would be a pretty significant inefficiency if we're bringing back, $20,000 invoices to the board for approval along the way. So I think there's a balance there between, yeah, absolutely, board oversight and board approval is critical. And we're not going to take any shortcuts when it comes to that, but also not to the point where it starts to, become overly burdensome on the project.
And I don't want that, and 20,000 probably wasn't the right number for me to throw out. But for instance, are any of these bond funds going to be used for planning that might go to, whether it's our department somehow or some other, if it's going to planning, then I'd like to know what project you're doing the planning on to make sure we all agree on that. That's kind of the stuff I was looking for. And obviously,
We do have an approved list, CIP list.
so you don't care which ones they pull out with this
Well,
bond
they've already
financing?
prioritized them. I mean, I think the only reason that we need to have oversight on that list is if something comes in significantly over budget, that they need new authorization, because they will need new authorization if it comes in way over budget.
But I
Could
thought
we-
that CIP stuff was
Yeah,
$90 million and we're only getting, 17 and 13 or whatever it is.
I know. it's
So
only
out of
80
those
million short,
projects-
So.
So out of those projects, I still don't feel I have a handle on the priority of what you're gonna use the money for, what projects. We don't have very much
We've
money.
established a priority list.
So which projects, Bertha, are they gonna be using for the 17 million on the water?
So
I'm
we
not clear with
included
that.
the list, the prioritized list of projects in the presentation that we gave at the last.
These are it?
Yeah, and those, that there has been years of work that has gone into the prioritization of those projects. It's not something that we take lightly. We've worked really hard to make sure that the projects that are included in the 5-year CIP are the most critical projects, and they're in order of priority. That, the order that we pursue them is in order of priority. So, and that's true whether it's a dollar that we've borrowed or a dollar of R&R funds. We would prioritize that and use it to the most efficient way possible, regardless of the source of the funding. It's all going towards the same thing, and it all comes ultimately from the same places. So we're gonna take that approach regardless of bond proceeds, R&R funds, even grant funds. We're still going to be as efficient as possible and target those projects that are the highest priority. So that is absolutely happening.
So I'm looking at, I believe, the list, right? These are the projects that you're anticipating to complete with the bond funds. The Jenny Lynn Tank A to Tank B transmission line, is that right? That's it here?
Those. Michael, are you looking at the agenda item?
Yeah, so those are the projects that are moving forward right now that we know will be ready, immediately, because some of it will be engineering and design and regulatory compliance work, and even before we get to construction on some of those projects. But like I said, the best, I think, and I'll defer to Jeff and Julio on this, but I think the smartest financial decision for the district is to use those funds, even if it's on design and engineering of these projects, use the funds that we're going to pay debt service on now, lock in the interest rate that we can get now, use the funds that we're going to pay debt service on towards CIP implementation as soon as we can, and knowing that it's all going to get spent on CIP projects and the highest priority projects are coming first, and we're still going to have a shortfall at some point down the road. So why would we hang on to those bond proceeds and use R&R funds when we could hang on to those R&R funds and let those reserves build while we're spending down the bond proceeds?
Yeah, bond counsel is not on the line today, but if you were, Albert Reyes would say that from a legal standpoint, because we have tax exempt bonds, that yeah, you want to use those you want to use that money exactly, Michael, as soon as possible for the tax exempt component. So any bonds you guys are generating, anything from your project fund, you want to get that spent as soon as possible.
Is there any way anything can happen?
In what regards?
Oh, well, no, that would stop us from getting the money or proceeding. Do we have any obstacles to look at?
The next steps in these proceedings for issuing debt is for our bond counsel to be able to get together with the bank's bond counsel to work out all the documentations. That's pretty standard. It's just back and forth. It takes several weeks. They go through their fine tune underwriting, but pretty much there's not a whole lot that's going to stop us if you give this authorization and move forward. And as Julio mentioned, the costs of issuance, which includes a number of things. One, the municipal advisor, the placement agent, the bond counsel, and also bond counsel for the banks, because sometimes they'll include that cost in their fees or, in their costs, they'll charge separately for that. But those are items that are going to be covered by the issuance, but only if the bond or the loans go through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we won't be paying anything for,
Until they don't get paid until we get paid, to put it simply.
And also just to add a little color for the director, we have term sheets in hand from these banks, which is key there. I mean, so that's the platform or the format for which to say this is a done deal for them. So yeah, it's, as Jeff said, it's really in your court now, moving forward.
Yeah.
I mean, once approved, I've never had a transaction not close. So it's your decision. If you decide you want to move forward with the financing, I can safely say I can't foresee anything. This is a pretty straightforward financing. So it should close by the first week in June.
Yes.
Any other questions? Are we ready for a motion?
not there.
You good?
That's on the first resolution, was to appoint the financing team and move forward. The other one that has actually been talked about briefly here is a reimbursement agreement. As you mentioned, sometimes we're doing planning design work before we actually get the money and on these projects. And what this reimbursement agreement will allow the use of those loan proceeds to even go back 60 days from this date to be able to make payment on those expenses. So let's say we have the Tank B, Copper Cove Tank B, where it's within 60 days to June 1st, we're going to incur $150,000 worth of costs associated with that project. It's going to be funded by the loan. Once the loan comes in, we can retroactively apply those funds, those expenses. And that really gives us flexibility.
I struggle a little bit with that sentence that explains that particular thing in this.
Yeah.
In the staff report or in
the staff report, yeah, that says that these project related expenses such as planning, design, and other pre-construction work must be completed within it. It should have been completed within 60 days.
Sorry, you're wordsmithing that, buddy.
Excuse me?
The IRS does not allow you to finance previously completed projects. It's for
Well-
new construction. So if you pass a reimbursement resolution, you basically draw a line in the sand and then they allow you to look back 60 days for things that you've spent within that 60-day period. So if you spend something 75 days, you cannot use bond proceeds to reimburse yourself for that.
Do
I
we
understand.
have a dollar amount of how much we want to reimburse us?
Well,
Or
this
the
is the legal
60 days.
precedent the bond council will use to establish the date in the sand. So starting today, if you authorize today, you look backward 60 days. So it's more of a test legally that you say any expenditure that was incurred from this date forward shall be 60 days prior to today. What's 6 days prior to today?
But do we have anything that we will want to do that?
It
Have
may
we
be like
spent
design and engineering costs, but nonetheless, for us, we always want to give you the flexibility. This was basically ink on paper, and if something comes out, you can reimburse yourself. It's a step you should take as a precaution.
Yeah, I think Jeff's ready to make a motion or two.
for it?
One at a time, I suppose, huh? I'll like to make a motion to authorize the general manager to proceed with planning for the issuance of certain obligation to finance water and wastewater system improvements. Appoint financial team, financing team.
I'll second that.
Right, public comment, is that correct? Any public comment here in the building? Any online? Seeing no public comment, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, passes.
Okay, I make a motion declaring its official intent to reimburse itself with the proceeds of a tax exempt financing for certain expenditures undertaken or to be undertaken by the district.
Second.
All right, any public comment? Any online? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that passes.
Thank you, Madam President, members. of the
Thank
board.
you, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you to the consultants that joined us today, and thank you for the board for support for this. And I just hope Julio's okay. He disappeared pretty quick from the podium after the first mention of a cattle prod. So welcome to Calaveras County. Julio.
He's still right here. We can see him.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody, staff and all those. Okay, moving on to 4B, discussion and demonstration of the new AMI meters. Jessica.
Hey, so
Are you
we,
leaving, Julio?
I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
we are nearing the finish line for meter installs throughout the entire district. We're probably around 11,000 meters installed. And like we mentioned earlier, we should be wrapping up Jenny Lind at the end of the month, and we'll still have about 100 meters left in West Point and about 500 meters left in the Ebbets Pass service area. And our meeting yesterday, I'm talking with Keystone and Mueller. It sounds like they should be done with meter installs just district-wide by the end of May. So we're really close. But with that, we do have 3 different types of AMI meters that we've installed throughout the district. And a lot of that comes down to material shortages. We want to make sure that you guys all know how to read our meters and that you are well educated on the types of meters that we have. So we have created a meter contraption. We don't have a name for it yet. So if any of you have a good name once you see it, we want you to see how all of these meters function, how to read them, how they're similar, how they're different. So we are going to take a field trip outside. And Rebecca has her phone. So everyone online, you should be able to see everything that we're doing. So we will go out this way.
Oh, the first page.
So yeah, a little over 13,000 meters.
Hey, Russ, get on over here.
Get on over here.
We were waiting for you.
I've got a name for it.
Okay, so we'll first just talk about the old meter real quick. So you can see here it's analog and this reads out in whole numbers. And as this, you'll see as this turns around, 1 full rotation is 1 cubic foot, and you'll see that move. So we have the water on. So turn on some valves here.
Are you recycling this water on this?
It's going to water.
For irrigation.
Oh, they're good.
Turn on our valve, and we'll turn on the customer valve. Okay. So you can see water is flowing through the meter. You can see that's the flow detector there. How it's moving through. Yeah.
He does now. He heard it.
Okay, so as I said, 1 full rotation is 1 cubic foot, and that is how these ones function. Okay, so we'll look over here. We'll start over here. So this is the ME8. So this is how you can know which one we're talking about. So there's an ME8, SSR, and SSM. So if you are out in the field and you see a meter and you have any questions for us, that's just let us know what type it is, and we can help you with that.
I know you said this was because we got short on product, but are these different models depending on the type of uses, you know, whether it's a home versus something else?
No, so
Yeah, the SSM is a solid state meter, so it's for higher pressure.
Okay.
and these ones, correct me if I'm wrong, have also been installed throughout the district prior to
Correct.
the AMI project. So there are some that were in the ground before our AMI project started. We started in the past, so most of Ebbets Pass has this type of meter. But due to material shortages, they switched over to installing the ME8. So outside of the pass, most customers have the ME8. Some have that if it was already installed on the ground. And then, like I said, most of the Ebbets Pass service area has the SSR.
And there is no difference between them. It's just making
One's digital, one's analog. They're all reading correctly. They read in different ways, though, as you will see. So We'll just kind of let that one go so you can just kind of see how that one's functioning. So we'll start with this one here.
And log in.
Okay. You can see how the ME8 is going. So the ME8 is, you can actually see more than the others. So you will see how this reads. The decimal is here. So you can see all the way down to the 100th. And this little spinny goes, you can see is 0.001. So one full rotation is 1/100th. One of these is 1,000. So you can really see the flow. So if we if we toggle this down a little bit, you can see even at a very slow flow, you can see how much is coming out of there. You're still seeing it, and this is spinning, so you're seeing, but at the same time, the old meter's still seeing it too. Okay, so that's the ME8. Okay, so let's do the next one. SSR, so Ebbets Pass meters. So these ones are digital and they cycle through a screen. So you can see here that it's in cubic feet. And this is the overall read of the meter. So it's a brand new meter. So it's just it was just at 1.1 cubic feet. The flow rate, you'll see it will switch over. So that's the total read, and we'll switch over to flow rate in a second, is 0.02 gallons per minute. So that's the rate in which the water is flowing through. So it's interesting how this meter reads, because it reads full total consumption in cubic feet, but the flow rate is gallons per
Does it
minute.
switch back and forth like
And
that?
it switches back and forth.
And the gallons per minute is kind of like your good leak indicator.
Right.
So if you have a tiny read on that, it's an indicator.
And the one thing you can see is it's saying right now flow. If you turn it off, it should stop. And it says, it no longer says high. So you can see it stop, right?
It takes a couple
Takes a minute.
flips back and forth and then it'll read it.
So I'll actually just turn that one off so you can see that one change. And so see if that's 0 now. And that's the total read. Okay. So then this one.
So much more interesting.
So you can see it's cubic feet, gallons per minute. So right now it's pointing at cubic feet. The other thing is the plus sign. The little interesting, you have to look at this one a little bit more. The plus sign means that water's flowing through. So if you turn that off, it'll stop and that plus sign will go away. So plus sign means water's going through.
No matter at any level, there's not a.
Right. If you see that plus sign,
That would, if you were all shut down, that would tell you.
right.
It
So-
also would have a minus symbol that would come up down here if for some reason you have reverse flow.
Right. Yeah.
And the number will change.
Right.
Okay.
Are these automatically read?
Correct.
Wireless transmission.
Yes. So once a day, these meters will ping to the network, and it will capture meter reads down to the hour. So it's only once a day that it communicates with our network, but that data pulls the last full day's worth of readings down to the hour usage. Okay, so that's how you can kind of read that one. So that one's total. I think you have to cover, and then this is gallons per minute. Also gives you the weather. I know.
It should have an indicator.
So this is total reading, 1.9. And then I'll show the gallons.
Tell us. Oh, that's great. You can call the customer and say, hey. You don't want to walk.
And the customer just look it up online too.
It'll actually send alerts.
It will should go.
What millions of these things 10 years ago. Man, just video. They didn't have that indicator.
Uh-huh.
Well, I was
Yeah.
thinking,
And that's the one.
I was thinking if they added 4 more meters on here and put it together like this, you could probably use it for a tailgate.
So the other thing that we can do with this little contraption is we can, if someone thinks that maybe their meter isn't reading correctly or it's broken or whatever it may need, we can attach it and we can, compare it to 3 meters right here and show, if these other 3 meters are reading the same, then it's accurate. One thing that we have noticed is if you put it at a really, really, really low flow, I'll see if I can do it. Let's turn on this one because it's the easiest one to see.
This one's
I
top,
think
the
it's
others keep going.
This one I think is a little bit more sensitive, but I don't know if I can get it down to work. See how that one's not moving?
Yeah, and that one
But
is.
that one is. So you can see how much more sensitive these are
Look at how
compared
much
to the.
water's coming out too. Well, they're both open.
Right.
Our
revenue should still-
the same. Revenue should go up.
Right, still, this one's not capturing.
Yeah.
Water's flowing through, it's not capturing, but this one is.
And that I think will be something really good to show the customers.
Right.
Is that-
When our customers
Okay,
got
I
new
guess
boats,
that's-
they were happy because the old ones didn't measure as much, and that's more accurate. So I'm like, careful if you.
Water
want to
picks
use
its easiest
it,
path.
It's gonna be more accurate.
Let's see,
It's
Well,
spinning
it's
now.
showing a little. Oh, yeah, no, it's
It is
moving,
moving
yeah.
now.
All right, well,
That was moving. This
well,
one's off.
we'll shut that off.
All
I
right.
wonder if you should leave
That was
this
great.
open to have,
So
so make those smaller and see.
so if you're gonna.
Whatever
just
it
take
is.
my comments in between here.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I would do, because these look really. All right, very cool. Thank you. That was great. Thank you. Oh, wow. Yeah, I like it.
Jessica, how many gallons per cubic feet?
7.4.
7.4.
You-
7.4.
Listen, leaders, it's too social. Talk.
I'm on Social Butterfly. So you know that commercial, tough love, tough love. They should use that for that thing. One of those commercials that stick in your mind.
So how many more in West Point?
How many more? what?
100 to be installed, 100, is that what you said?
We have just 500 is the change and we've got.
Evans Pass, uh-huh.
All right, welcome back. Are we ready?
Well, yeah, I want to continue with that. That's okay.
Sure, absolutely. Jess, I think,
Jessica, before you eat that cookie,
busted.
I just want to ask, now, I had suggested that we do an online demonstration on our website. Are we going to do that for each and every one?
Yes, I'm currently in the process of putting together a video with that meter contraption, so we can post it on our website. If customers have questions, we can share the website or the video to them. We're also going to put together a video that shows the 5-gallon bucket test so that they can test their meter reads on their own at their house, just to help educate
Okay.
them.
Nice.
Yep.
And we're going to the town halls.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be bringing it to town halls. We'll have that little meter contraption set out in the lobby for customers to see. So we're really excited to be able to utilize that.
Nice.
When will we have the video
It'll
available?
be done by the end of the month.
By the end of the month?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was really a great presentation. Thank you. Demonstration. Do I need to do any public comment on that? Anyone online want to comment? Seeing none, here we go. All right, item number 5, reports. 5A, report on the March 27, 2022 operations and engineering departments. Damon's not here. You're just as good.
Well, actually, I changed my name to Damon Wyckoff.
Oh,
so,
very nice.
uh,
Welcome, Damon.
Yeah, we can go that way.
What instrument do you play?
The coffee can. So, do you guys have a copy of the PowerPoint of the presentation? Is there any
I
questions?
have no question.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what we're.
Well, it's like fixing broken pipes.
You know
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
Sometimes just having it.
Before and
it
after.
Look like that is good.
Before and after.
yeah.
Whoa.
No, they're pretty, explanatory, so.
And there's our
Well, Russell's
demonstration.
gonna wanna know what they did with the redwood.
No, I'm dying to know how long this mechanism, this fire hydrant rebuild, how long did it take that amount of corrosion to take place?
Probably quite some time.
That hydrant was probably in the ground for quite some time,
30, 40 years?
at least. Yeah,
On page 14, that beautiful truck that both Russ and I said no on, is that the truck you
Oh,
just
there
bought?
it is.
that's it. In
Yes, we're
action.
gonna be known for that for a long time. Hey, begin.
I think they put a little decal on it. It's got somewhere in the back.
Right, Russ and Cindy said no. Awesome.
Okay.
I just wanted to touch on the 2-inch replacement in Crowcell Court.
What page?
It's on 11.
5.
It's on page 11 and 12.
Oh, their pictures are numbered, not pages. Oh, well, no, it isn't. There's pages there.
That's one, it's been a thorn in our side for a long time. I think we had four active leaks on it. And we've had multiple repairs on it, and we had a window of opportunity, so that was one that our new underground crew and the Jenny Lynn distribution crew and a couple of the construction guys, they all tag team that and replaced that 2-inch in a week. Just a few weeks ago, so we had a long brand new 2-inch and brand new valve. So that was a great effort on all of that.
So back to that truck for a second that I pointed out.
Huh?
So are you guys helping AMI install that? Because wouldn't that be their job?
That's a good question. I haven't been too much a part of it. I know there was a couple of parts and pieces that needed to be upgraded. And I think they gave us the parts and we put them in.
Yeah.
We just wanted to solve.
We built the solar panels, all that. So that is technically our equipment that we did in-house, the electricians did, but.
Thank you.
No
Looks
problem.
really nice.
Awesome. Thank you,
I
guys.
wish I had one.
I have a question. Okay, on this tank replacement
Yes.
and what tanks where?
So the tank that's pictured in the PowerPoint, that is in Forest Meadows. That's our
Right,
other
other-
tank.
Yeah.
The one that's getting ready to go into service here in a couple weeks is across from Eco Drive. And
Number 8.
Number 8. And then after that, there is a discussion of going towards Flume Court in behind Meadowmont Center.
Right.
So it's trickling, but we're also seeing the effects of chain supply with materials on that front too.
Right.
So
Mhm. You know, because we had talked for years or a long time about how the tanks were leaking.
mhm.
And how could we ever get an idea how much water we lost, or do we care?
No, we care. It is something that we would have to have flow meters going to the tanks. That way we know how much is going in, how
Right.
much is coming out. It would take quite a bit of work to find out how much is actually leaking out of the tanks, but
So we
roughly-
don't have any meters. We don't have any gauges or
we
whatever.
have flow meters going to the tank. We do have the meters at customer
Right.
services, so we could get a guesstimation.
But is it leaking from the tank or somewhere on the transmission line? That's.
That's, yep, that's a good point.
Okay.
Looking at those two pictures of that Forest Meadows tank, I can see what appears to have been the base of the tank. And then you've got some propping posts holding up what appears to be a portion of the lid. And then the lid's on the ground. But what is that metal?
So those are tensioning rings that hold the tank together.
No, I mean, it looks like a bunch of brick or something, very thin brick on the picture on the right.
Oh, that's the roof shingle.
So those are actual, like asphalt shingles?
Yes, yes, sir.
Why were you
And-
using?
No,
That's what happened at King Lynn, those things, that wooden roof structure caught on fire.
Yeah.
Then they collapsed inside the tank.
Oh.
Yep.
Hmm.
Wasn't the regular.
No, it was the roof that,
Water, it's just the top part, but right, the eaves would catch fire.
yeah.
It looks like that would be kind of risky to even get up on top and walk. I don't know.
Yes. I wouldn't want to do it. Good?
Yeah.
All right, thanks you
Okay,
guys.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Very nice.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to general manager's report. Michael, could we just get, a pictorial report from here on out from you?
Yeah. Let
kidding.
me see it. Let me
I do
just
like
draw-
it though.
Let me get my crayons out and just draw something up real quick here. No
There you
problem.
go.
I'll keep
Alright.
it short. I know the remote attendance is not ideal, so I'll just hit what I think are the high points here. Just real quick, I didn't comment on that meter item, but I just thank Jessica, and I know distribution staff put that thing together, and it's just I think going to be a really great feature for us. And we're already starting to see the benefits of that project and how we're able to identify leaks. Customers are able to identify them in places where they didn't even know they had a leak. They can now see it and try to track down where their leak is. So I think it's already having the effect of starting to tighten up the system. And then from the regulatory compliance side, which was a big part of the big driver for this project, we're going to get just it's infinitely better data to report on our consumption and sharpen up what were previously attributed to transmission losses, which was skewed data. So we're already starting to see some of the benefits of that, and I think it's going to get better from here on out. Real quick, we had a legal affairs committee meeting. We have a few bills that we are going to bring back to the board with recommendations for positions on. We also finally were able to nail down a date with Congressman McClintock for a visit. That's been in the works for quite some time, and it looks like May 9th. So we'll be in touch with board members. It may be a short window. We were hoping for a longer visit and a tour, but it might be a short window. And so we'll try to plan that to the maximum benefit possible. And one of the things we were thinking of is we need to revisit the 75th birthday party plan that got canceled back in August because I think it was the Delta variant at the time. So staff were wondering if and wanted to check in with the board on whether that might be a good day. Not sure if the congressman would be able to make it, but at least there's a chance. We know he'll be in the area, and we figured that's as good a day as any. That's a Monday, I believe.
The 9th is.
Yeah, so we were thinking of shooting for that, for a 75th birthday celebration. It's a little bit of a short turnaround time, but if we got the invites out here this week, we could pull off a celebration and make sure we don't miss out on that opportunity. So we don't have to make decisions here today, but we'll be looking for board feedback on that in the near future.
Oh, 75 and a half.
Yeah.
75 and hold it?
Director Underhill reminded me of this a few months ago and said, well, just make sure we get it done before our 80th birthday. So I think coming in under the window here. We had an all hands meeting 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and it was just awesome. We haven't been able to do that very often. It's normally a quarterly thing that I wouldn't, I guess, normally report out to the board, but it'd been a while since we've been able to do it. A lot of new faces, a lot of turnover since the last time we were able to do it. We did a chili cook-off that had a lot of really enthusiastic participation, and no, my chili didn't win. And it was just a fantastic event. So I know Jessica and Stacy and the whole wellness committee put a lot of work into planning that, and wanted to shout out them for all the planning work that went into it. It was the first function that we've had in the new courtyard, and it was we know at least it's perfectly capable of handling a party. So so far, return on investment is good for the courtyard.
How many people attended that, Michael?
You know,
Meeting all hands.
as with all hands meetings, of course, there were a couple of things that popped up that morning that some staff had to attend to. So it wasn't everybody, but I would say there's probably 55, 60 people there. Stacy, I don't know if you had a head count, but it was probably in that range.
That's good. Yeah. And that was here on site.
Yeah, it was in the courtyard.
Well, maybe, the courtyard. They said courtyard.
Said the warehouse.
Nice.
Just had to run an extension cord because we don't have power out there yet. So.
When's that gonna come on?
It keeps getting delayed. I don't know if Jared or Kevin are online. Do you guys have an update on PG&E at the courtyard?
I have not heard an update. I know that they were still reviewing our application and they approved our service location. So I think they're working on the budget to get the next phase of the courtyard.
Right.
But we ran 11 crock pots off of one extension cord without a problem, so we were good.
No problem.
I did a tour of some of our facilities around Hunters with Ebbets Pass Fire and Summer Nicotero at UPUD, and I think that is there's a lot of interesting discussion going on now at UPUD with just changes, and so it was really great to spend a half day with Summer and get her to look at some of the infrastructure that serves the corridor, and show some of our fire folks those facilities as well. There was a town hall. I don't know if anyone else, any of the board members were there, but the Moak battery project is still around. There was a town hall on that, or a virtual town hall, that went on way too long, but there was a lot of information. They are still moving forward with the project. And then they just submitted a planning document to FERC this week. So there's been more activity on that front. Seems like they're still very serious about moving forward with it. They have not yet identified which water rights they will be using. They're still going to have to procure water rights for that project, but it would be a pretty significant. I think they're settling somewhere in the 400 to 500 megawatt range, which is a huge, it would be a huge battery if they can pull it off. But we'll keep the board informed as that project moves forward. And that, I think, was really the highlights for now. And look forward to seeing you all in person next board meeting.
Awesome. Questions?
Yeah, Michael, on that, your suggestion that you ran the party out there on an extension cord, it brings to mind that I'm powering my house now on a generator, just as if I would have to, be running a generator during a PSPS event. So I don't think that facility is going to be able to be powered up by the generator that we have here by the, So does it make any sense to put a generator out there and
yes,
begin?
it will have its own generator.
Yeah,
But if you need to commence your work inside, wouldn't it be a good idea to get I mean, we've got generators all over the county that aren't necessarily being used right now, so make the electrical connection and so you could power the building up.
The electrical gear for inside the building has long lead times for it. They have not, I don't know if they ordered that yet for the panels. And then the generator that I believe Kevin is spec'ing for that is gonna run on natural gas. That way we meet the emissions. So and that's over a year out to order the generator. We have natural gas here. Yes. Okay. That's part of what PG&E application was, that they're bringing a service. Well, we need to order those boxes. I'm sure you guys are well aware of it. I think that the electrical department is working on that. When you say the electrical department, who's that? Brian Crumpacker, our electricians. Okay. Yeah, because the lead time on that stuff is terrible.
It took me 5 months to get my panel for the power at the ranch. So it's a zoo.
Any other questions?
For Michael?
Yes.
Michael, I'm just curious about safety. Where are we as far as our safety
Yeah.
for the agency? Is
So we're still
concerned.
working on what the best way to address that is. We know we either need to find a way to give existing staff, somebody within our existing staff additional bandwidth to be able to dedicate more time to the safety coordination effort. We always, there's a lot of training and, safety is always a high priority. It's just really the coordination of that the piece that we're looking at. And so whether or not it makes sense, we're trying, it'd be hard to add a position that's dedicated to that. It would be, I think what we're trying to do is see if there's a way to reallocate existing work among staff to carve out more time for somebody to be able to dedicate to that effort, or potentially bring somebody in from the outside, but we haven't finalized anything yet.
Michael, I just want to remind you about giving us an update at the next meeting for the slurry line project.
It's forthcoming. It'll be more than an update, I think.
Awesome.
We'll have
That's
some
what I
stuff.
want to hear.
I think we'll have some stuff for board approval at the next meeting.
Yay, thank you. All right, we'll move.
Will Jessica turn the valve on like she did a few minutes ago?
We'll have to
All
work
right.
on that. Yeah, we'll need a valve opening ceremony.
Yeah.
We'll have to get a bigger instrument.
All right, board reports, information of future agenda items. Russ, you want to go?
Oh, boy.
All right, never mind. Yeah.
No, I don't have anything to report.
Very good. Jeff, how about you?
Nothing to report.
Bertha?
No, I'm just waiting for summer.
Okay, I just want to let you know there's no IRWM meetings this month for WAC or JPA for the T-stand one. And then Jessica, we went ahead and scheduled the town hall meeting over in my district for May 19th. 10 a.m. When was it? 5:30? Gotcha. Anyhow, that's it. So,
Let's see, opening a project.
yeah, we talked about that. It was the opening of project, but I think, okay.
Oh, no, it's the 17th, sorry. it's
Oh, the
Tuesday.
17th? Alrighty, 17th, I got to change that on my calendar. All right, next board meetings, Wednesday, April 27th at 1 o'clock and Wednesday, May 11th at 1 o'clock.
I want to remind everybody that I will be gone on the 27th. So any long financial.
Do it then.
Do it on the 27th.
Will do.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Send me a one.
Yeah, do that. That would be fun. All right, so at this time, we're going to go into closed session. Item 8A, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation,
25th.
significant
Oh, no,
exposure
you
to
talk about
potential
April.
litigation.
Jessica?
54956.9. There's two cases.
Thank you.
And 8B, public employee performance evaluation, government code 54957. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, okay, we're gonna go into closed session. And Rebecca, what time is that? I'm sorry, what? 2:47, thank you.
Want a break?
I don't.
Yeah.
We're in, we're actually breaking.
It's only going on 3.